Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digi Finance video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at UUTI and their bi-monthly sales ranking for the given time period of May 1st through May 15th. So this is when spoiler season was kind of just starting to show up, and Japan has already been playing around with a lot of the new cards from the new starter decks, so that definitely had a huge impact on the meta and what people are deciding to play and pick up, on top of, like I said, the spoilers influencing what people might want to be thinking about. So without further ado, let's just go over the list. Starting with the SRs, we have Omnimon. So this version of Omnimon is the BT05 version of Omnimon, and this Omnimon is just a really powerful card just because he could act as a really solid game finisher. So we know both red and blue can easily pick apart the opponent's security, and what's making this Omnimon so powerful is his ability of Advance, where you could attack with this card even if the memory goes on to the opponent's side when you Digivolve up into him. So that's just really good because, again, like red can just one punch all of the opponent's security and then basically just Digivolve up into Omnimon and close out the game that way. And blue can kind of do a similar thing where it doesn't have as powerful as a one punch, but it does have a way to multi-attack lots of times to try to clear out the opponent's security, on top of which it has a really good early aggression game as well. So it's not very hard for either of those colors to get the opponent to basically zero security and then Digivolve up into Omnimon to close out the game. On top of which, he also has a very powerful built-in protection ability, where if he were to be bounced or deleted due to the opponent's card effects, then you just discard one of his level 6s in his inheritable sources to prevent that from happening. So even at worst, if you're unable to close out the game, he's still just a very hard card to deal with sometimes, all depending on the type of deck he's going into and how people are going to be using him. But if we take a look at some of the Japanese results and Japanese data, we could definitely see that red as a color took a huge uptick, mostly due to the new additions that red got in the Gallantmon starter deck. And Omnimon is just another really good card because he's in red that you could just run. And Omnimon being a card that could basically go into any red deck just makes him a really good card to want to run and want to pick up. So we already see that this is kind of happening in Japan already, so that's why Omnimon is the best-selling SR in this time period. Oh, and Omnimon also just so happens to be a Royal Knight, and we know that in BT06 there is going to be some Royal Knight synergy in the form of Sistermons, and you could even think about utilizing him in red a little bit more thanks to Jessmon and the Hackmon line. So it's definitely looking like that is going to be a very good card to want to pick up for the BT06 format. Next up, we have the best-selling rare during this time period, which is going to be Weedmon. So this is the BT03 Weedmon, and this Weedmon is just a really powerful early aggression tool just because he is a level 3 with jamming. So jamming just basically allows him to safely attack into the opponent's security without worrying about being deleted by the opponent's security Digimon. So that's just making Weedmon the perfect early game aggression card. And we know that thanks to the new blue All-Force deck, this is just looking to be a really good card to complement what blue is doing. And on top of which, we still also have all of the other old blue decks that basically almost all want to run Weedmon, just because there's no real reason not to because of how good he is in the early game. On top of which, blue is still getting more jamming, blue still has multi-attacking. So the earlier you could try to attack the opponent's security, the better off you are as a blue player for when you play your big combo turn to try to kill the opponent off. So it still just looks like Weedmon is a very powerful and very played card, not only just for blue, but for Mega Zoo style of decks also, because they like to utilize this card with Demi Weedmon, so that way they could get some extra card draws. So even just past blue, he still has a decent amount of flexibility on how you could play the card, just making him a really solid card to think about getting. So even though in Japan, blue has slowly been losing its relevancy, that's more due to the fact that blue probably doesn't have good removal, and blue might not be the fastest color in order to try to deal some really good aggression. So that's probably why there's a huge downtick in blue, because it's just easy to deal with a lot of the threats that blue is presenting the other top colors with. So That's not saying blue is still not a very good color, because it could still perform. It's just that there was a small deterrence in wanting to play blue, just because there's a lot more attention on a lot more powerful decks. But the fact that people are still picking up Weedmon is a very good sign that people still have interest in the color, and this is just more of a meta shift for the current times. Next up, we have the best-selling uncommon during this time period, which is going to be Transcendent Sword. So, Transcendent Sword, for those who don't know, is a red removal option card where it deletes a Digimon with 11,000 DP or less, and then if you have a Greymon or Omnimon on the field, then you could destroy a Digimon that is at 15,000 DP or less. So, for all intents and purposes, this is basically the equivalent of Gaia Force, except it's an uncommon in BT05, and on top of which it also costs one less. So this card just not only sees a lot of play in a lot of red decks, but it also sees play in a lot of security control decks, just because it also has the security ability of activating its main ability. So it's just another removal tool that that type of deck has, and that deck really wants to have as many removal options that are as efficient as they possibly can. And Transcendent Sword is definitely looking to be one of the better removal options we have in the game. So it only makes sense that a lot of people want to pick up Transcendent Sword. So as we already saw, red has this huge uptick in people wanting to play it in the meta, but what the graph unfortunately doesn't show is hybrid decks and hybrid deck results. And we could definitely see that during this time period, yellow-red security decks are definitely on the incline, and they are still a very powerful, popular, and problematic deck all at the same time. And then the best-selling common during this time period is going to be Weedmon. So Weedmon is looking to be a really good card for green and the Digiburst style of decks, which is what's on the incline as of late in Japan. So it only makes sense that people want to pick up all of the pieces to that, and Weedmon is definitely one of the more powerful pieces that Digiburst decks have to be playing around with. So what's making Weedmon so good for the Digiburst decks is his inheritable ability, where during your turn, when this card is trashed due to the Digiburst ability, then you get to gain 1 memory. And with that 1 memory, there's just a whole bunch of different things you could do, especially in a color as efficient as green at evoing and utilizing a lot of its cards. So making sure that your plays are going to be as powerful as possible just means that playing Weedmon is already very good, on top of which he has just some very decent stats because he evos for 1, he has a low play cost, and you don't really care about his DP because you're just using him to Digivolve and then utilizing him as an inheritable source for Digiburst fodder. So all of that combined just make Weedmon a very good green card to pick up, especially if you're going to be playing green. And as you can see in the Japanese meta, there's still just a lot of people playing green, and green is still doing relatively well in the overall meta. So what the US market is doing is that a lot of the cards are finally stabilizing and settling and leveling off at a more reasonable level compared to what they were at pre-sale or what they were at the beginning of the Special Booster 1.5 meta. Now, we could see that sealed product is still a little bit on the overpriced side, so if you're comfortable with paying this price, by all means do it, but I would still advise if you have the option, and just think about the singles and the deck that you want to pick up, and look into BT04 to figure out what you want to play in BT04, and pick up what you need now, because right now the singles, for the most part, are at an all-time low, which is relatively good. Some cards are still holding some really good value, don't get me wrong, but like Omnimon is now finally at a nice leveled 65, which is where he was initially, and we saw this huge spike in Omnimon's price all the way up to 100, 150, so the fact that now he finally leveled out at 65 is really good. Obviously, there's still value in the card, it's just he's not that ridiculous price that he once was. And we could see that other cards like Millenniumon are going up in price as well due to the overall popularity and demand of how good level 7s are for decks like Megazoo. So it kind of shows like what we're buying also reflects into how our meta is going to be behaving, Because before, Millenniumon was selling for around 25 to 30 to 35 for a while, and now he's finally hitting up to the upper 40s and low 50s, so it definitely means that a lot of people have more attention on the card and are buying up the card. But like I said, a lot of the other cards seem to be leveling out quite nicely and be dipping in price, so now is probably the best time to pick up a lot of the singles that you're looking for, especially since we know that there's going to be some small waves of 1.0 and 1.5 in the future. So the prices are probably going to be a little bit more stable, if not go down even further. But I'm not expecting the prices to go that much further down, all depending on the size of the restocks. But when you could build a competitive deck for like sub 100 or around $100, that's still really good, because even like with Shine Greymon as a perfect example of this, he's a $10 card and he's a tier 1 deck. Granted, one of the other pieces that you need is also a $10 card, but the vast majority of his other cards are relatively lower, and it shouldn't cost you more than $200 to build a Shine Greymon deck, which again, I think that's a really reasonable price for a tier 1 deck. But you could obviously build a lot of other decks that are just as powerful as Shine that are tier 1 without spending lots of money. So you could build something like Imperial, where the only other card that's super expensive is going to be the Jamming Weedmon that I mentioned before in Japan. This card is still just a very played card, even in the US meta. So I definitely really like where the market is stabilizing at, and I definitely think a lot of these card prices are reflecting more of what they should be at currently than what they were previously in the meta and in the 1.5 season. Now, I already covered this in a separate video about the pre-sale prices of BT04 being absolutely ridiculous, and they still are, even though there's a little bit more competition driving the prices down a little bit. It's still on the high side compared to what they should be, and we could definitely utilize and see everything that's going on in the special boosters 1.0 and 1.5 to kind of reflect what their prices truly should be at. So as we can see, like the highest rare was like $11, and now we're dipping into like the $5 range for a lot of like the highly played rares. And then we could see that a lot of the SRs and secrets are around that $5 to $20 range on average for the not alt arts. So we definitely can paint a picture on what prices should be depending on their playability, popularity, and rate of pull. So, like I said, I already covered this in a separate video, but BT04 presale prices are overpriced, and these are more normal prices on what we should be expecting from the Digimon card game going forward. And then as far as what promos are doing what they've always done, and the majority of them are a little bit on the higher side just because they are still decently hard to get, and that rarity is definitely making them hold a higher price. But as we can see, some of the cards are actually stabilizing and leveling off to a more reasonable level. I still think some of them are a little bit on the high side, considering a good majority of them aren't even going to see any play or don't see any play, but the fact that they are just very hard to get cards, it definitely makes them have a higher price tag as a result, just because they are harder to get. So some of them are still meta relevant or will be meta relevant, so those are the ones that you definitely want to look out for. So the Diaboromon promo is good in the Diaboromon deck currently, but it's also going to be really good in the Diaboromon deck that's coming out in BT05. So when we get the updates in BT05, then I definitely expect something like this to jump up in price, because then there's a lot more attention on it as people want to pick up and build that deck. And as a result, some of his other support cards that are also all promos, those will also be in high demand. So these prices will probably dip a little bit more as we get into the BT04 season, where these cards aren't really going to be used. But when we get into BT05, then they're definitely going to see an uptick. And then some of the cards are meta relevant now, like the Infamon. This is still just a really decent card to be playing around with in Megazoo, just because it is in on-play level 5, so that way you could utilize it to digivolve into your level 6s if you so need to. But on top of which, we also have some promos that are going to be useful in BT04. So we have the Devimon promo and the Devimon promo that are going to be useful in BT04 because of the Dan Devimon deck, so those are definitely interesting cards to look out for. Now, the one big thing is we could see some pre-sale prices on the new promos that are going to be coming out. So here are all of the Dash Pack promos, and I think these prices are extremely overinflated and definitely not worth it. You should not be spending $40 on a Purple Metal Garurumon Dash Pack, because we already know that the Dash Pack is going to be everywhere. You're going to be getting 2 when you buy a single booster box, and you're going to be getting 1 when you buy 2 starter decks. So that means there's going to be a higher amount of these Dash Packs than the other Dash Pack promos before, and even though the other Dash Pack promos were alt arts and these are new and exclusive cards, there's still just going to be a whole bunch of them, and as a result, they definitely will be a lot more common than people are going to be expecting, because we also know that it is going to be a 1 in 3 chance of pulling any given card of these 3 in a Dash Pack. So the overall less amount of cards means it's going to be easier to pull, and with cards being easier to pull and an overall increased amount in Dash Packs compared to the others, these definitely will not hold this type of price, and I 100% would wait till the set is actually released, so that way you could let the secondary market do its thing and have the prices stabilized to a more reasonable level, because again, these are just pre-sale prices, and barely anyone is able to list on pre-sale, and we need the floodgates to be opened for the healthy competition to make the price a more reasonable and stable level. Now, the anniversary promos is definitely a set of promos that I would 100% look out for, just because there's actually going to be less of these than the Dash Pack cards. So the fact that these were selling less than the Dash Pack cards is already telling that whoever is selling these doesn't really understand the prevalence and how many packs they're actually going to be getting, because the Dash Pack cards are going to be more common than the anniversary promos. And I think the anniversary promos are definitely the promos to look out for, because you get 1 per box, so there's already overall less of the opportunity to get more of these cards. And on top of which, you're only going to be getting 2 of any given card out of the pool of 6, so it's going to be even harder to pull a playset of any given card that you need in order to play some of the decks that they go into. So these are the promos that I would definitely be on the lookout for, and I definitely think that probably these will definitely go up in price, just because if we do the math, we are expected to see in a case setting about a playset of each card in a single case, where we could probably expect in a case setting, we could probably see multiple upon multiple playsets of each of the Dash Pack cards. So again, the overall prevalence is a lot lower on the anniversary promos, and as such, those are the ones that are going to hold a higher price. So I would definitely be on the lookout for those. But again, I don't know the overall stock that there is going to be of these cards, and I don't know how these cards are going to be distributed, if it's like a box topper or if it's like a Dash Pack, because if it's like a Dash Pack, then I would actually expect the prevalency to be a lot lower than what you would expect. But if it's like a box topper, then I would expect it to be normal like some of the previous box toppers. But regardless, it's still going to be relatively hard to get a full playset of any given one of these cards, so I would definitely be on the lookout, and these are the promos that you would want to be picking up first, rather than the Dash Pack promos, because the Dash Pack promos, as I mentioned before, are just easier to get, and because they're easier to get, they'll have an overall lower price tag. But as I stated before, it looks like a lot of the other promos are just, for the most part, stabilizing and finding a more true price point. And I definitely think that a lot of these promos, even though the majority of them aren't really going to see much play, the ones that are or do see some play definitely reflect that in their price. And their price also reflects how hard they are to get. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comment section below. And as a quick reminder, I do have a TCG player affiliate link down in the description below. So whenever you buy cards off of a TCG player using that link, some of the money does go to supporting me and the channel. And on top of which, I also do sell cards on TCG player as well. So if you ever see Zenitsu games on TCG player, then you know that is going to be me. And with that, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.